A very warm welcome in this cold evening. So we had just concluded our 11th anniversary footprints, and we have entered into our next year, and this is second session for that. Myself, I'm Krishna, and I'm the Associate Vice President Footprints. And if any one of you would like to become a next speaker, we can have a discussion a bit later point of time. But nevertheless, now the digital India, digital world is the buzzword. Am I right? Who doesn't believe in digital world? We all believe, right? And so everything, right from the life, work, and business, everything is going into digital world. And so our projects and programs, that's what today our speaker is going to tell, how to deal with these things. And some of the insights that he will touch base upon are the components of digital marketing, how digital analytics are weaved into this landscape, plus the implications of this digital world or digitization in the project management. All right? And then today we have our speaker, Mr. Ranjith Raj, Associate Vice President, Analytics and Consulting, HSBC. And the topic name is D-Cube. Digital marketing, digital analytics, and digital project management as well. Okay, a brief about our speaker. Ranjith Raj is a PMP certified plus analytics and visualization professional. He works as a AVP, Analytics and Consulting with HSBC Risk Analytics. He's a certified digital marketer and specialization in digital analytics, storytelling, and consulting. He has also published technical white papers in digital, data analytics, and project management. He is an engineer by degree, and he also has done his MBA in marketing. In his spare time, he writes, reads, and speaks. And Deccan Chronicle, the newspaper, featured him in an article called as Superstars of Biosphere, Blogsphere, not Biosphere, sorry for that. And he's also a TEDx speaker. So with a big round of applause, can we invite our speaker? Over to you, Ranjit.
So ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time and the effort. Like Krishnaji said, on a cold evening, Thursday evening, Bangalore traffic, you actually took the time to come here. So very humbled. I hope the presentation meets your expectations. I'd also like to thank the PMI chapter, the Bangalore chapter, for giving me this opportunity and this platform for taking this topic. So my topic today is pretty loaded, as you can see. The title is pretty loaded. It's digital marketing, digital analytics, and digital project management. Now, as I was making this deck, something just kind of crossed my mind. Now, oops, yeah. So if this topic was probably taken 20 years back, which is in 1997, and if the same topic was taken 20 years hence, which is basically in 2037, guess what the title might be? In 1997, our topic today would probably be just marketing, analytics, and project management. Any guess as to why it could be so? Anybody from the audience? Any guess why? Exactly, brilliant, yeah. So digital was not really that big in 1997, or at least from a marketing or an analytics or a project management point of view. In 2017, you have to distinctly call out the digital part of marketing. Obviously, analytics has a distinct digital part. Project management also, like Krishnaji mentioned, it's slowly getting digitized. There is a digital part to almost every project today. 2037, again, it would be marketing, analytics, and project management. Why again? Exactly. So in 1997, 20 years back, and in 2037, 20 years hence, the topic which we cover today would be marketing, analytics, and project management. In 97, because digital is not even present, in 2037, it is all present. So ladies and gentlemen, in 2017, let us take our topic, digital marketing, digital analytics, and digital project management. Now, what really comes out from this particular term digital is probably the meaning to it. What exactly does it mean? Now, we'll actually touch upon that in the first topic of our presentation. So this is basically the highway. We'll start with attempting to define what digital is. I'll just be very honest, we won't be able to do that. We'll get into the meat of the matter. We'll go to digital marketing. Then we'll actually go into digital analytics. Then we'll understand what are the implications to project managers from a digital point of view. We'll get a little bookish. We'll look at the PMBOK, the knowledge areas perspective to digital. And finally, we'll conclude. So just a little call outs, because digital is a pretty comprehensive and a pretty heavy topic. I have consciously made the deck at a very high level. And also, I would request that the questions be parked towards the end of our discussion today. Hopefully, we will complete this deck within time. So to enable that, hopefully, I would request that the questions be parked towards the end of our session today. So I'll just start with the first topic, attempting to define digital. Now, it is almost obvious, like Krishnaji had started or set the tone, almost everything today is digitized. Now, the issue is that today digital has touched everybody's life, but it has manifested itself in our lives in very different and unique ways. So one person's definition of digital will not be another person's definition of digital. For example, a person who uses Uber and Ola a lot, he's also a digital consumer. His or her definition of digital will be a little more towards platforms. My wife is one of them. I, on the other hand, I'm a person who does a lot of YouTube videos. So my definition of digital would probably move towards streaming and things like that. My grandmother, on the other hand, now she's also a digital consumer. She uses WhatsApp to make calls or WhatsApp calls on a daily basis to talk to her daughter-in-law in US. So she's also a digital consumer. Her definition of digital will be very different. So, and this is at an individual level. Now, if you go towards the business level or a company level, again, the same thing happens. For example, a big bazaar, they would define digital as another way of doing their business. And Amazon, on the other hand, would define digital as being all of their business. A Kodak would probably define digital as something that destroyed all their business. So the point I'm trying to make is that it is very difficult today to assign a single definition of digital. Digital means different things to different businesses. So the key takeaway from this slide is whatever business that you are in, you define what digital means to you. And then after you have the definition, then you make up your objectives, goals, and things like that. And care should be taken that you define, or your definition keeps you keep changing your definition, because the amount of flux in the digital world is extremely high. So you need to change your definition. You need to be aware that your definition is changing. So this is a key takeaway from the first slide. Now, like I was talking about the vagrances or the changes in digital, I'll reflect that in my second slide. Now, this is a personal example. So in 2010, I wanted to go to Singapore on holiday. Okay, so like almost everybody I know, what I did is I actually went to a travel agent. So I had a friend who had this travel agent, let's call it Honeymoon Travels. I was a bachelor anyways, but let's assume that his, so I basically went to him and I told him that, yeah, dude, I want to go to Singapore, give me a good deal. So he did my bookings, he did my hotel, my tickets, he gave me a final estimate. He finally told me, I kind of told him, okay, put something a little bit extra. He gave me some coupons. He told me what to do, where to see what, and things like that. It was a good trip. I went, had a great time, and came back. Now, in 2014, again, I wanted to go to Singapore. Okay, so again, on vacation. But in 2014, what I did is I went to ClearTrip. Okay, so ClearTrip helped me with my bookings, my hotel, and my air ticket. I also interacted with my friend from Honeymoon Travels. He helped me with my visa and things like that. I went for the trip. It was a great trip, and I came back. So if you really look at it, what really happened? So in 2010, Honeymoon Travels would have thought that its competition to its business would have come from maybe another travel agent. Now this is based in Indiranagar, so it would have thought that its competition would be another travel agent in Indiranagar. At the max, it would probably be another travel agent in Bangalore. It would have never thought that its competition in 2014 was basically a faceless website. So in 2016, again, I went to Singapore on vacation, but this time I got my tickets from Google. So Google basically asked me my dates, and it showed me the cheapest air tickets which site provided. It also showed me which are the popular hotels which I should consider, lots of reviews, and it even gave me the site for applying for visa and things like that. So again, if you look at it, in 2014, ClearTrip would have thought that its competition would be another website, maybe like your Make My Trip or Expedia and things like that. It would have never thought that in just a few years, its competition came from a search engine. It has nothing to do with travel agency. So essentially, this is the essence of what people say is disruption. Now, even today, people are saying that even Google is getting its competition from a completely unrelated field. Can somebody tell me which is that brand which is probably giving Google a lot of sleepless nights? Which is the brand? Which is the name of? Not really, at least not from this context. Yes, Amazon. What is the insight? Why is it a competitor? Okay, that's a little high level. I'm not really going, that's a good answer, but it's a little too high level. In the interest of time, I'll just probably touch upon the insight. So basically, people who come to Google search, more often than not, or majority of the people, what they do is, they want to kind of research some product which they want to buy. Okay, majority of the people who come to search. So what they do is they come to Sing, they look at the specifications, reviews, things like that. Amazon today provides that entire platform in its website. You can just go there. You can see what are the competing products, what are the specifications, what are the customer reviews, and even they deliver it to you. So they're saying that Amazon is today in a completely different field to Google search, mind you, and it is actually giving Google sleepless nights. So the key takeaway from this slide is that digital disruption, it changes the fundamentals of an industry, bringing about both risks, as you have seen, and also opportunities. Now, how people or experts, they tend to say, of course, there is no right size or right method to kind of deal with digital disruption, but experts say the way to do it, number one, like I mentioned in slide number one, define what digital means to your business. And number two, understand your marketplace from a supply and dynamics point of view. And look at digital as a means of connecting supply to demand in your business. Usually, this kind of an approach can probably help in tackling digital disruption. And digital disruption is pretty difficult to handle, mainly because there are multiple number of technologies today which is inherently digital. I mean, digital is in its DNA. But it evolves itself and becomes completely different things. And then, it is never the same from what you actually started off. And what is even complicating the marketplace is that some of these technologies, they interact with other technologies and they become completely different forms. So that is what I will be actually touching upon in the next slide. So this is not a comprehensive list. This is just a bunch of technologies which is inherently digital. These are all technologies which I picked up from the newspaper over the last 3-4 weeks. I'd like to just talk about a few. Has anyone heard about Sophia? Sophia? So it is an artificial intelligence humanoid. Has anyone seen the interviews, the videos with Sophia? Okay, it is crazy. It is absolutely crazy in the sense you have a humanoid, artificial intelligence based, and its jokes are very funny, very intelligent, and often very, very clever. Of course, a lot of times it just gives you gibberish, but the jokes that it cracks is very intelligent. And it is, at the same time, it is very fascinating, but also it is very, very creepy. You see somebody like that. You should see the videos. It's of course, it actually took a different turn. I mean, your Saudi Arabia gave it citizenship, and then, the discussion went in that direction. But as such, if you see the videos, the interviews where she answers questions, or she or he, or whatever, it answers questions. It is fascinating, at the same time creepy. There's another video which is going around, which is viral. I think it's called Future of War. It's going on WhatsApp right now. So it's a very crazy phenomenon in the sense, so basically you have AI interacting with drone technology, and it's come up with a technology where, so it's basically, it's got facial recognition, and it can probably come in a room of 100, and it can selectively terminate people. So they say it is the future of war. So with a budget of around 250 million, which is like a fraction of your defense budgets for major companies, you can selectively eliminate an entire city. So very fascinating, but at the same time very, very scary. So so I'll just touch upon. So these are most of or many of the existing and evolved technologies. You have machine learning, virtual reality, IoT. You have sensor data, cloud, drone, like I mentioned. Yeah, this is something which had a lot of news in India. This is basically your flying cars. So the Google guy is actually putting in a lot of money. Some experts in India were saying that your driverless cars will not really work in India because of all the complications. So they are suggesting that India should leapfrog its technology and get directly into your flying cars. And it is actually a possibility in the sense that it is expected that a prototype might come as early as maybe 2020 or maybe in the next 5 years. So then you have robotics, Alexa. I mean, almost everybody is probably aware of it. You have your mobile, artificial, deep web. Deep web is a very interesting topic. Try to Google for Silk Road deep web. It's a fascinating story, fascinating case study. Deep web, digital marketing, you have Bitcoin, Sophia, like I just mentioned, you have quantum computing, neural, blockchain, Google, and this is just, it's not a comprehensive list, it's just a few set of technologies. You have a lot of other technologies. So our focus for today is just, so digital today is in the DNA of various existing and emerging technologies, and our focus for today is just digital marketing. Okay. So now let's just get into digital marketing per se. Okay, so before we start into digital marketing, I need you to understand just two things. Okay, now digital marketing, the first thing is you need to have some sort of a digital property. Okay, which can be a website, it can be a blog or things like that. So that is number one. You need to have a digital property. Number two, you must understand that digital marketing today is all about or majorly about Google search, which is actually pretty scary. It's like, I mean, if it's your traditional marketing, if you say that majority or almost all of your market is just one company, maybe Times of India, for example, you are putting your business at quite a risk because you're actually, you're subject to basically one company, which is not really the case, but it is very scary. You'll have to give in to their demands as they become, more and more powerful. And that is the case, what is happening with digital marketing today. Almost all your work is being done for Google search. Your Bing and your DuckDuckGo and other websites or other search engines are not really, people don't really put in the money for optimizing for these sites. So these are two things which you need to start when you actually get into digital marketing. So the first is basically SEO, okay, search engine optimization. I'll give you a technical definition, but before that I'll just give you an example so that it's easy to understand. Now in 2002, 2003, so your outsourcing to India was like a big thing. People actually saw legitimate results in the sense if you outsource your processes from your developed world to India, it did have quantifiable cost benefits. So a person in America, what he needed to do was just go to Google. So Google was not as smart as it is today then. So you can just search on Google, and in the results, what happened is there was one company which used to come as number one. Now that company belonged to a friend of mine. He's based out of Kottayam in Kerala. And at that point of time, he had about 4 employees. So so when a person in US puts, outsourcing to India in America, the first company that comes as your result was basically a company, and was this company. Your Infosys and your TCS at that point in time came way, later. So what he did was basically your search engine optimization. He basically optimized his site to the search engine Google. Now there's a lot of ways that you can do. In fact, what they're saying is there's at least 200 different ways that you can do to optimize. So I'm not really going to get into all those 200. Obviously, I can't. But I'll just touch upon just a few things. So SEO, or search engine optimization, basically is about improving the quality and quantity of the traffic that comes to your site organically. So the operating word is organic. So for example, now if I go to Google, and my old example, Singapore packages, if I put Singapore packages, you will get this result page. Now what you will see is the first 4 entries would be ad. You could actually see it's ad. And then after that you have your natural links which come up. This is basically SEO. Okay, so this is an old slide. You also have another, 3 ads right underneath also today. And in some cases, you don't have this bit here. So we'll take SEM later, but this is what SEO is. So to the layman, okay, so like I said, I'm not really going to get into the different 200 set of parameters. To the layman, if you have a blog or if you have a site and you want to increase the traffic that comes to your site, 2 things which you can do is, one is have original content or write original posts which is at least 1,500 words every 2 times, or rather twice a week. Do this consistently for 6 months. Your ranking or your page ranking will, or your website ranking will go up from a Google engine point of view. So that is something that you can do. Another thing is link building. So the more number of sites or reputable sites, if they have a link to your site, your rank goes up. Now I'll give you an example which TCS had actually done. So .gov site. So you tend to trust a site which is .gov. So TCS basically handles the passport office website. So one of the most trusted sites in India. So it is actually managed by TCS. So at the very bottom, you'll actually see that this site is managed by TCS, and it actually gives a link to TCS, to the TCS website. And as a result, TCS's ranking from a Google search point of view actually goes up. So these are 2 things. Like I said, there's 200 or at least 200 of them. Google never releases these, but you can actually find majority of these on the web. Google never admits that these are the ones. So that is basically SEO from a conceptual point of view. Now SEM, or search engine marketing, that is basically this part. And this is how Google makes most of its money. So what fundamentally the concept is, now if I put Singapore packages and I search for it, I probably have these ads. So these companies, maybe the first ad, what they do is they bid for this keyword, Singapore packages. So maybe the first one is probably, I don't know, maybe Make My Trip. So Make My Trip's ad would be the first one out here. And it is actually human tendency that when you go to a website, invariably you will only click the first 3. At the max, you'll go to the first 5. You will almost never go to page 2. You will never go to page 10. So basically, you bid for this keyword, and if your ad is one of the first, the chances that you get a click or a conversion, is a lot higher. And which is the reason these companies bid for SEM. And this is how Google makes its money. And when you're a digital marketer and you probably want to bid for Google, you wouldn't know who your competitor is. You just know the bid value. So your results are instantaneous. You maybe pay. So usually it's in lakhs. It's probably you have 10 lakhs in a Google account. It finishes in seconds. But in that particular time interval, if somebody searches for this, they will come to your site. So if you are probably a real estate agent, and if you have, I don't know, maybe an apartment which is maybe 4 crores, for you 10 lakhs is nothing. If you can get at least one customer because of SEM, it actually makes your day. So that is basically SEM. So which is a brand which you associate with Big Billion Day? Flipkart, yes. So the second year when Flipkart ran Big Billion Day, do you know which was the ad which came first? Or who was the bidder? It was Amazon. So those things also happen. Okay, so the next is basically social media marketing. Okay, this is all, I mean, this is something which all of us are aware of. Before that, how many of you guys have actually clicked on an ad on Facebook? Okay, wow. So what they say is not many people actually do. The reason is if you're going to maybe a Google search, so like I said, your mind is always on because you have an agenda. You are actually searching for something. In my case, maybe it's Singapore packages. So if I see an ad, Singapore packages, cheapest or something, my tendency is to actually click on it. But if I go to Facebook or maybe saying, my mind is mostly off. I'm just there for just relaxing. You know, so what they say is your ads or your marketing on your social media may not really get as much impact as the others. But the reason why social media makes a lot of sense is because you can actually listen to your customers. You can actually know what they are thinking. And mind you, they will give you their mind. So over the last 5 years, I'm sure you've heard multiple number of PR disasters where somebody who does not like something, they just go to Facebook and then they tag it and then they give their. In fact, I think there was one IT company where they fired somebody in a not an ideal manner. So this person basically recorded it and put it on YouTube, and of course a lot of companies also did the same thing. But that company's CEO had to publicly apologize on Twitter. So your SMM or your social media marketing is one of those means where you can actually listen to your customer. You can actually understand what is your customer's experience with your product or your service. Next is basically email marketing. Now, email marketing has been there for a very, very long time. Today, it's become very sophisticated, and because a long time back, your email marketing, you used to get emails, and it is like buy this, buy that. I can change your life, and this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and all that junk. But today, if you look at it, it has actually evolved into a more, the selling is more subtle. So it is mainly used in your loyalty programs. So if you go to a website, most likely after 30 seconds, something will pop up and ask you to kind of put your email ID, and they'll probably give you something free. And then you will have regular, emails, and they're actually good content. And subtly, they will also sell their services. So the selling has become very subtle nowadays. Just a few examples that I follow this thing called what is that? Luxury Escapes, luxuryescapes.com. I just use the service only once, and they have my email ID. They keep sending me a lot of mailers. I really like their emails mainly because the pictures that they have are beautiful. So I just open it not to buy anything, but just to look at the pictures. So that is one example. So it's not just image. It could also be, for example, I follow another person. So this is a person called Scott Page. He's a financial advisor based out of Melbourne. So every Monday he sends an email. It's called the Barefoot Investor. So what he does is he gives you examples of questions. So people write to him and ask him questions, and he solves them. So it's very interesting to kind of understand financial, things that probably can affect you also. So it's very, very text heavy. So the other is very image heavy, and this is very text heavy. So this is an example of email marketing. Something I just didn't cover was basically in SMM. Again, from a layman point of view, if you have probably a site and you want to kind of improve it from a social media marketing point of view, images are very, very relevant. People tend to click those posts which have a good image. Localization, this is also a big trend in the social media. For example, now if I probably send you a site saying that the 23 best cafes in Amsterdam, maybe you might probably click on it. On the other hand, if I send you another link, 23 best cafes right next to the PMI chapter building, the chances of you clicking it is a lot higher. So your localization is a pretty big factor along with images in your SMM. Email marketing, like I said. So email marketing now, what people are saying is you get a lot more responses through LinkedIn messaging. When you actually message your marketing medium through LinkedIn, you tend to get a lot higher impact rather. Now app development, I will also put your mobile marketing under this. So this is a pretty from an Indian context, it's a pretty big deal, especially because smartphones today is, that revolution is what is happening in India. So I'm not really going to go deep into just two case studies, which if you can probably search this, the Khan Kajura Tesan. Okay, this is a very interesting exercise, a mobile marketing exercise which HUL did in Bihar. So in Bihar, there are some areas which is very media dark, in the sense that there is no way to meet or communicate to these customers from media. It's very media dark in some places in Bihar. So what HUL did is they actually provided a number to most of the people in these media dark areas. And what they needed to do is they just give a missed call to this particular number. And this number then calls back and provides them filmy songs, jokes, Bollywood news, and things like that. But in this session, it is interspersed with ads from HUL. So this was a campaign mostly for Wheel, but they actually eventually also put in a lot of ads for their other HUL products. So this was a phenomenal success, because this was a market which nobody had touched. There was no other media, and they had this phenomenal success rate with it. So it's a brilliant case study for mobile marketing. Khan Kajura Tesan, you can just Google it. It's a very, very interesting story. Flipkart, so in the app development space, I'm sure the technical guys would probably be a better would be a better advocate for this. Something known as a progressive web app. Are you guys aware of it? Progressive web app. So it is an industry first. It is revolutionary in the sense that, so basically Flipkart in collaboration with Google, they've developed a website for your mobile. Okay, so it is very light. It doesn't take too much of your battery and resources, and it was developed by Flipkart, and it's considered to be a revolutionary product. So it's called progressive web app, and now even LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn Lite came up very recently, I think. So they are also using this same technology. So these are two case studies which from a mobile marketing point of view. Web design, anybody who's bought anything on Flipkart or Amazon, you will know about it. So a lot of factors play into it, how long it will take to probably load, your navigation within the website. So a lot of things. One thing which I found interesting was the cultural aspect of websites. So when website design comes, so if you've noticed, if you probably look at maybe your American websites, they tend to have a lot of white space. They tend to have that minimalistic approach. So I'm not saying that is right or wrong, but in India, if you see, your websites are slightly more busier, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because see, like there was this company called Jabong. So Jabong was actually, it was a European design. It didn't really make it here. But on the other hand, you had something like a Shopcluse, which was pretty busy, and it is actually a resounding success. So cultural aspect, surprisingly, is also one of the factors which can make your website, a success. So this is basically a framework for digital marketing. Every time you hear something with respect to digital marketing, you can kind of plug it in this particular framework. Now, one thing which I've avoided is basically your video, which is actually now doing pretty big in your digital marketing point of view. I would club it under SEO, because again, it's content. It's like, it's not like your websites, which is your, your text content. This is video content. So this is basically, the basics of digital marketing. Okay, so so this is basically the set, a comprehensive list. Now I'll go to the next section, which is basically the digital analytics. Now, the reason why digital marketing is such a big deal is because of digital analytics. Because you can measure your marketing or digital marketing to a high degree of accuracy and precision. Okay, so I'll just give you an example. Now, this is an example with traditional marketing. So I was actually interning at a car company in 2004. Now, this is one of those cars which is reasonably famous. It's been in existence for 10 years. It's a very niche player. It is not as big as your Marutis and Mahindras, but a very niche player. And it used to choose to spend its money very, very carefully. So it used to depend upon word of mouth and things like that. So when I was interning there, they decided finally that they will actually put a full page ad, and this is in 2004. So that time there was no websites, or there probably were websites, but people not really that comfortable. There was no Twitter, and there were no Twitter handles or Facebook pages and things like that. They were there in the market, but they were not really leveraged as effectively as it is today. So they decided to kind of publish a full page ad after 10 years on Times of India. So what happened was they were all happy with the copy, it looked very witty and things like that. Now they put that in Times of India the next day, and the phone number which they put was wrong. So if anybody saw that ad and if they were even interested, they would call a number and it was wrong. So effectively what happened was 10 lakhs went down the drain. And this was a company for, 10 lakhs was a pretty big deal. So somebody got fired and all that. So my point is, a situation like this will almost never happen in digital marketing. Because in digital marketing, if you have probably an ad copy, you can actually release it to a section of the target, and you can understand how it is actually responding. So if you feel that your ad is probably working only with women from Bangalore, okay, you can actually then fine-tune your ad and then again resume it. And you can probably stop it maybe on Sundays. You don't want to you think your target audience is not working on Sundays. So Sundays you can stop it. You can even probably target only from maybe 4 to 7 o'clock during the day. So this aspect of being able to measure your marketing, which is basically your digital analytics, is the reason why digital marketing is such a big deal. A great traditional marketer once said that half of my marketing is working. The problem is I don't know which half. So that problem will not happen. You know exactly where it goes. So you can actually fine-tune and razor sharpen your marketing. So your traditional analytics per se is basically these points. So in any analytics project, you have your data extraction. You get your data. Then you have your data management or your data preparation. Then you have your data analysis. And then you have your data visualization. And finally, an analyst, he looks at the data and comes up with the insights and recommendations. Almost always, you have different tools out here. So this is your traditional analytics. In your digital analytics, you have various set of tools. And this is not a comprehensive list. There are various other tools also. So you have various other tools which does at least this much for each of these subsegments. Okay. And like I said, there are some which so this is also Adobe Omniture. So some, they tend to do more than just what is shown out here. You still need an analyst to kind of, pick out the insights and recommendations. But most of this is being done by, these tools. And this is just some of the tools. There are many other tools. So this is basically with respect to digital analytics. And this is the reason why, digital marketing works. Because you are able to measure your marketing. Now, why is all this important for project managers? What is the implications to project managers? So mainly because, like we started off, almost every project today has a digital component. Life, your business is all getting digitized. So as project managers, there is always a digital part of your project. So before understanding that, you probably need to understand why is digital the way it is. What is in digital that makes it so unique or make it so different from your non-digital way of doing things. So this slide basically looks at that. So we all know this is basically the waterfall way of doing a project. You have these set of steps, your initiation, planning, then execution. So if you've noticed, each steps come one after the other. That is, there is a linear flow. So with time, people realize that linearly you really can't, manage a project. You have to have those iterative aspect, which is how, your agile came into existence. But if you really think about it, even your agile is actually based on a foundation of linearity. Yes, there is a lot of iterations. Now the reason, what I believe, is that because human thinking has always been linear. Your educational systems also propagate linear thinking. And that's been the case across, your entire, your human civilization has always been about linear thinking. If I give you a problem, you will actually, what works probably is actually a step-by-step linear way of solving it. And that's the way human thinking works. Digital, on the other hand, is anything but that. It is exponential. And this is a fundamental reason why we feel that, or we still have not really got a handle on digital. Because we as human beings, we've been conditioned to think linearly. Digital, on the other hand, is not such. It is exponential in nature. So probably a way of probably handling this is to have iterative measures at each and every step. And when I say each and every step, it's very difficult to define which step. Okay, so which kind of comes back to our first thing, how difficult it is to kind of define digital. So this is so what people say is, like, one, define what digital means to you. Your definition will not be what your competitor sees it. Two, understand the supply and demand dynamics in your marketplace, and look at digital merely as a link between supply and digital, and how do you fit in this picture. And always keep your eye on the ball. The minute you take your eye off the ball, your digital project has a tendency to derail. And the fundamental reason is basically this, because we look at things linearly. Digital is all about being exponential. So now I'm going back to that first slide which we basically looked at. Now my question is, what if you were the project manager of Honeymoon Travels in 2010? Would you be able to probably forecast or foresee these digital disruptions? Probably not. But would you be able to at least mitigate your risk? I won't say yes, maybe. Okay, so essentially, few of the implications because of digital disruptions to project managers, few, I just have a few points out here. In today's digital world, when you're handling digital projects, as a project manager, your learning quotient is extremely high, or it should be high. You need to have the ability to unlearn, relearn, and learn again. So I have a friend who helped me with, something very fabulous, very simple. So she basically has this, she goes to office, she's got this commute from 7:30 to 8:15. So what she does during a commute is, she wanted to kind of learn a new skill. So it was basically Tableau. So what she did is she used to go through one Tableau video every day in her commute. So at the end of 30 days, at the end of a month, she was not an expert at Tableau, but she still had a hang of things. So when there was a Tableau project which came, in her organization, she was one of the people who was actually fit, and it was a pretty prestigious project. So this was a very, very, very executable thing, from a learning quotient, learning or improving your learning quotient. The other thing is, today, almost all projects, there is this concept of being interconnected. So if you're actually driving a digital project, more often than not, what you do is you define your stakeholders for your project, and then you probably have good connect with them. But today you need to understand what are the other stakeholders of the other projects in your organization. And you should also understand what their objectives are and what really matters to them. Now I'll actually touch upon that in this point. So today we live in an interconnected world, and you need to have the ability to unlearn, relearn, and learn, and at a pretty fast rate. So this is something which actually project managers seem to need in today's digital world. Second is pretty obvious. Agile is definitely the digital way. Third is stakeholder management and change management becomes extremely important in the digital age. Now I'll give you an example. So we were working on a project where we needed to launch a digital product in Korea, in South Korea. So what we did is the normal way. We've identified who were the stakeholders. So it was an Asia Pacific project, so we had the Asia Pacific stakeholders and things like that. It was going reasonably well. A few months into the project, what happened was a completely different stakeholder, basically the senior guy from the American sales team. He came up and he told us that this product, if it is launched in South Korea, somebody can buy 1 million of them at a very cheap rate because of the discount, and he can actually go to US, ship it to US and dump it over there at a much lower, and that will actually affect his business. So this is something which we never really thought, at the beginning of the project, because we were completely from an Asia Pacific point of view. We never looked at it that there was another stakeholder in another part of the company with another project who's got a completely different set of objectives. And because of that one reason, that project got shelved. So again, it is actually about the interconnected aspect. You need to understand not just your stakeholders, not just your priorities of your project. You also need to know what are the other projects in your organization, who are the other stakeholders, and try to understand what their objectives are. Understand what is their definition of digital. So that becomes very important in today's digital world. Change management is something which I'll actually touch upon here. So relevance of project managers in digital projects is actually becoming extremely high. They more often than not, there's a very high demand for project managers. And the main reason is that mainly because of the ability of change management. And the other aspect is that, essentially your project managers have historically been a facilitator role. So you kind of are the glue of any project. So if there are changes coming, you basically, you pass on those changes to your change management board. If they approve it, then you basically, integrate those changes into your plans, and then you go ahead with integration. But in your digital world, the pace of changes is extremely high. So slowly, the project manager, he filters changes today. He's actually getting more of a gatekeeper role. He is the gatekeeper to that project. He decides, that the right changes gets into, his project. So we had another project where, so again, this was also, we were trying to come up with a digital project in China. So, so this is basically, so the product development team was based out of Ireland. Our stakeholder was basically the APG lead. She was sitting out of Singapore. So what happened was that the product development guys, so they have a very robust change management system. So what they used to do is they meet every 3 weeks. And they basically grill you. If you have a change request which comes, as a project manager, you're supposed to come up with a business case. They will grill you, and they meet once every 3 weeks. So if it doesn't get approved, then you'll have to kind of go back and redo it and then meet up again after 3 weeks and then present it. If they pass it, then you have to kind of approve it. I mean, you have to kind of integrate that into your plans. So if you look at it, they meet once every 3 weeks. In 2 months, probably one change gets approved. Okay, now on the other side, we had our APJ lead. So we had a meeting with her every week. And in every meeting, she used to give us at least 2 changes. So in 2 months, I used to get something about 15 changes from my client. And in 2 months, I only, I'm able to kind of come up with just, or if I'm lucky, that one change gets approved. So this was a pretty big mismatch. So what happened was we started filtering the changes. We started telling them, okay, these are the things that this change cannot be approved because of so and so reason. So the project manager's role has actually moved from a facilitator role more to a gatekeeper role. He decides, that the right changes gets into his project. So this is something that you see in your digital world. So project managers are there's extremely high demand for project managers in your digital projects, basically because of this gatekeeper role. Okay, so the next slide is a little busy. It is not as scary as it looks. So I'm not going to go through the entire thing. I'll just touch upon so this is basically looking at digital versus non-digital from a PMBOK definition. So obviously complexity, that digital projects are definitely a lot more complex. Stakeholders, obviously your stakeholders keep, you will have a lot of requirements. You might actually find a completely new stakeholders, like the case in my Korea project. Requirements keep changing. Scope, yeah, this is an important thing which I will actually touch upon here. So the concept of triple constraint, right? So from your strict project management point of view, if any one of the constraints changes, it actually results in changes in the other 2 constraints. In digital projects, that it does not work, because more often than not, your contract will lock your cost or your schedule or both. So your scope keeps changing, at the same cost and at the same schedule in most cases. So your concept of triple constraint does not work in your digital projects. Human resources, nothing much to, one thing which we found to be working is that if your project team or your core project team is co-located, that they are all in the same room, same building, we tend to see a lot more benefits. So that is something from a human resources. Communication, extremely important because there's so many moving parts. We even went to the extent of over-communicating. Communication, extremely important because there's so many moving parts. Risks, obviously, a lot of risks in digital projects as compared to non. Procurement management, I would say that you have your contracts which are a lot more comprehensive, very, very structured, a lot more things get covered in your digital projects. Culture, I would say, is project-based. Integration, because there is a lot more moving parts, far more comprehensive. Customer satisfaction is, again, I would say it's project-based, but usually what happens is because you tend to meet your client more often, your customer satisfaction tend to be better. But that's our experience. But again, it could be also be project-based. So this is basically the PMBOK. So if you actually see, fundamentally what we're saying is, agile is definitely the way to be, for your digital projects. Finally, in conclusion, so this is basically a roundabout of all the points which we talked in different sections. So digital, it means different things to different businesses. There is no one definition which can go for all. You need to define what digital is to your business, make your objectives, understand your supply and demand equations in your marketplace. So these are basically the fundamentals of digital marketing. The reason why digital marketing is such a big deal is because you can measure your marketing activity. You can fine tune it, you can stop it, you can resume it whenever you feel like. So the return on investment is far, far higher. Human thinking is linear, digital is exponential. This is the fundamental reason why we think that digital is still something we still don't have a handle on. Digital disruption, it changes industry fundamentals, as you've seen, completely changes things for you. Project managers are extremely relevant to digital projects, mainly because of their gatekeeper role, and agile is definitely the way to be for digital projects. So that's all time that I had. Thank you all for being a lovely audience. I'm sure that we have time for questions, so shoot away. Yes, please.
One question on the domain. How important is that knowing the domain in the digital world? Because you have like different, you have travel, you have finance, you have all the other worlds. So how important it is for the team to know the various domains?
No, when you say team, are you referring to the project team? I mean, see, I have a different answer, but are you referring to the project team, or what do you mean?
I'm referring to the project team. I'm trying to see if a new person wants to get into this space, how important is the domain important to get into it? Or
okay, so I'll answer it in two ways. So the first, I'll actually say that, see, a project manager usually, when he gets into any domain, it helps to have as much knowledge about the domain as possible. But usually in your projects there is another an SME with respect to it. So your job is not really to compete with him, because there's already some. Your job is to kind of make sure that the project goes on track. But having said that, usually it helps as much as possible. So you need to kind of draw that line as to what you need to know and what you don't need to know. So this is the case with most projects. As a project manager, the more knowledge you know is definitely good for you or good for the project. But at the same time, there will be definitely an SME out here. Now, the second aspect which I want to talk about from a domain point of view. Today, for example, now, if I look at maybe finance, about the whole Bitcoin, or I'll talk about banking. So in banking, what they're saying is its competition is coming actually from websites. So somebody who's got a deep knowledge about about websites can actually compete banks. Because if you really think about it, a bank, what it does, it just stores your money and then gives it back to you whenever you need it. You don't really need to go to a branch. A website can actually do that, which is actually the case. So banks which are not really getting into digital are actually finding a pretty tough time actually. So my question to you is, domain in the second case actually matters, because your competition or your very existence might not really be coming from your own domain. It might be coming from a completely different domain. Now, how will you get that information of that completely different domain? It's pretty difficult.
My next question, I don't know if there's a direct answer, but suppose a person who has not been in the digital space and he wants to jump into the space, what's the best way to
See,
make
I would say just start doing digital projects. See, invariably, almost all projects that you have they have a digital component to it. So see, your digital projects, they start at least, or there is a lot of similarities with your non-digital projects. I think probably a very important aspect about digital projects, now I'm in the data analytics space. So for us, digital as well as data, one big thing is data. So even in a digital, you need your data. So one big thing for us is quality of data. So unless we know that the data which we get is something which is good enough to kind of push the project forward, we will not be able to. So what we've done is that we have that, you have your waterfall way of looking at things, right? You have your initiation planning, etc., etc. So what we've done is we've also included a pre-initiation phase. And in your pre-initiation phase, we look if the data, so we first talk to the stakeholders when we understand, okay, this is what they want. This is the result that they expect. Then we look, do we have the data, the right data for it? So when I say right, it would probably be robustness, the kind, the quality of data. So do we have the data for actually going ahead with these results? Now, we've actually had a lot of projects where we kind of went into the project and then we realized that, we don't have the data for it. So then what happened is then the resources got reallocated, and then finally when we did get the data, then we had to pull them back, and it was a mess. And invariably, if a project stretches, the blame often comes on the project manager. So how would you want to kind of start a digital project? I would say, just start doing digital projects. There's a lot of websites. There's something known as what is that guy? I think it's, okay, I'll get, there's actually a set of websites, you can just go through them. It kind of gives you a perspective of what is relevant to the digital world today. It kind of gives you some sort of backing, but my answer to you is just start doing digital projects.
Ranjith, there's a question from one of the webcast users.
Yes, please, yeah.
It's Mr. Srivatsa, and he's asking, more companies are embracing digital as an essential component of their overall business strategy for the future. But what is the role of IT?
What is the role of IT? Okay. So I would put, see, if you really think about it, so this goes to, the old slide, where is that? So, you have so many different technologies which is inherently digital. And if you really think about it, even your IT is inherently digital. So is it digital? Yes. But is it only digital? Not exactly. So fundamentally, I would actually look at, digital being the umbrella right now and IT being one part underneath that. So digital strategy, in my opinion, would probably be a lot more important than an IT strategy. Mainly because if you have defined your digital strategy, your IT and your marketing and your other aspects, other strategies would follow. So answering your question, I would probably put the digital strategy as a lot more important than that of IT.
My question is like, how AI is going to affect digital marketing?
Oh my God. Your guess is as good as mine. So see, AI basically now, see, if you actually look at it, now AI affects machine learning. It is out here. Like I mentioned that, your other drone technology, the future of war, it is there in Sophia. So the future is, you really cannot predict it. What you can probably do is, you can probably prepare yourself for it. Be aware that these, see, like, so a few maybe years back, you had this thing called, maybe I think last year, you had something known as the Amazon Echo. You basically can kind of give, so it basically works on conversation analytics. It actually identifies whatever you say, and if you say, okay, Alexa, put on the TV, and it does. So now people are kind of used to it. I mean, I have at least 3 friends who has that in their at their home. So for me now, if there is a new development which comes from the Echo space, I am not, or I don't think I'll be that surprised. So, my expectation, that spectrum has actually come down. On the other hand, the Sophia thing, it is fabulous. I still don't know what to make out of it. I mean, I don't know, at one point in time, will my boss be, something like maybe a Sophia? So I'm not really able to understand. So right now I'm still in that area where I'm actually quite fascinated by it. It is very creepy, but I'm also fascinated. So my answer to you is, I don't think anybody can predict how a particular technology will go, because inherently it will evolve, which you can't predict. There is also the aspect that it can actually, interact with another technology, and it can also take another turn. So it's very difficult to really predict these things, which is actually the reason why most of these businesses seem to fail. Like your Kodak. Kodak never really realized that digital would actually, it's a 100-year-old brand. It's got amazing brand equity. It defined photography. Over a course of 5 years, once digital came up, it just got, completely eliminated. It went bankrupt. So I don't think you will be able to be in a position to predict it. Maybe you can follow people like Elon Musk and things like that, and probably read their views and probably form your opinion.
Ranjith,
yes, please.
There's one last question here from the webcast. It's from Mr. S.N. Murthy.
Okay.
How would the people strategy change to bring in a digital culture? Any guidelines or best practices for leaders and organizations?
Okay, so that would be more from an HR point of view. I'm not really the best person for that. But see, fundamentally, I would say that you should propagate the idea of interconnectedness. See, like we had that issue where our project got it stopped because of something which completely didn't. So what we did to ensure that it didn't work out is so there were those monthly meetings where all these senior stakeholders kind of meet and they talk about some random topic. So we started being present in these meetings. So essentially, I would say that if that had come from the organization, so the organization is a very big, or your leaders have a very big play in actually ensuring that digital, is well accepted within the company. So if our company at that point of time had probably popularized this whole concept of interconnectedness, maybe our Korea project would have been slightly more successful than calling it off. So answering your question, I would say one aspect is interconnectedness. Where you get to know what are the other pieces in your organization, what are their objectives, what are they doing, what are the projects who are the stakeholders, things like that. So again, that is specific to my experience. I'm sure that other people with much more diverse people experience would probably be able to add more points. But specific to this, I would say interconnectedness is a pretty big deal. So I hope I've been able to answer that.
So one last question.
Sure, I think this gentleman was, he's, okay. He's been showing his hand for a while now.
Ranjith, thanks for this outstanding session.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And it was really enlightening to see so many technologies and the role of project managers. So my question is very specific for the project managers. Like use the three things like unlearn, relearn, and learn. And then I saw the traditional waterfall project management cycle, then agile way, and this exponential way. I really like those things. So I just wanted to know it is a very challenging thing. Like people have been used of certain way of doing things like waterfall.
Yeah.
They are adapting to agile. And I'm really scared to see this exponential thing. So can you just share some of your key, because I know you have been involved in the digital project. So what are your maybe top 2 or 3 key learnings, like how to get into that gear? Like when you said we should start doing the digital project management and get into doing digital projects, so that's one thing. But I just wanted to hear something little more on this unlearn, relearn, and learn, and then how to handle this exponential thing.
Okay, so I won't be able to comment for everybody. I'll just tell you what I do, and probably my method is not really the right way. It could be absolutely wrong. So one thing which works or which seems to work for us in digital projects is that we at least review the project on a weekly basis. Now, see, it's very easy to say that, but usually, see, we have multiple number of projects. We have at least 3 or 4 projects by project manager, and different projects have different priorities. So we tend to focus more on the higher priority projects. So in digital projects, what we've seen is, like I said, if you take your eye off the ball, if you actually miss even one meeting, things tend to convolute, it tend to evolve in a different way, and it becomes a lot more difficult to get that project on track if you do so. So our way is mostly have that monthly meet or that weekly meeting and have those key stakeholders involved. So that is one. The other thing which helps me from a learning point of view is that example which I gave for my friend. Whenever you have some spare time, just see one video. I mean, define, okay, this is something which you want to know in digital, maybe Tableau, maybe, I don't know, maybe VB or something. These are all data analytics tools. Just see one video on YouTube every day, 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes at the max. At the end of a month, you may not be an expert, but at least you will have a handle of things. So these are two things top of mind, which the way we kind of handle. Maybe right, maybe wrong. And the other thing is, yes, keep talking to a lot of people. You know, it's, and in your organization, keep talking to a lot of different people. You might not actually go walk up to somebody and say, okay, what's your digital strategy? No. So, you know, you might need to have that rapport. And as you kind of, you know, develop that rapport, you can kind of share notes. So that is also something which we seem to, you know, see it seemed to be working. So you're welcome. Yeah.
Okay, for the benefit of time, you can ask the question because Ranjith will be here. May I request Mr. Murli Santanam, past president, to felicitate our speaker. Big round of applause for Mr. Ranjith.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Wonderful session, actually.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir.
Learned a lot of information.
Great.
And I think it's everybody liked it.
Thank you.
So
Thanks, sir.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir.